We have to reach this point, and I think we're beginning to reach the point of reasonable punishment for said crime, right? Like, one of the great things about the laws of our government is there's no double jeopardy. No double jeopardy. The idea of you can't be tried twice for the same crime. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the news of the day. That's the Kareem Hunt, who, of course, was exiled from the league, and rightfully so, after some video emerged of him a couple years ago laying his hands on a woman. It wasn't good. And today he signs with the Cleveland Browns. Now, the stats are, as a rookie, he led the league in rushing with 1,327 yards. The stats are, this past year, 11 games in, his production had slipped because they'd become more of a throwing team. But he also had 7 touchdown receptions. And he'd run for 7 touchdowns as well. He'd run for 824 yards, so he's well on his way to over 1,000 yards in 2 consecutive seasons. Is he a superstar? No. But is he a really, really good player? The answer is yes. And part of why he got another opportunity was because John Dorsey, the general manager of the Cleveland Browns, was in that front office with the Kansas City Chiefs when they drafted Kareem Hunt going back to spring of 2017. That was before he was relieved of his duties. What's fascinating about this, though, is going to be the vitriol that he rightfully receives from many in the public. First, you're going to hear, well, Colin Kaepernick, well, that doesn't really matter, right? We're comparing Kareem Hunt, whose issues we know, as opposed to Colin Kaepernick, who we can't even begin to dig into understanding whether or not he wants to play football or not, right? Like, if Colin Kaepernick really wanted to play football, wouldn't he be playing in the American Football Alliance? Wouldn't he? The other thing you're going to hear is the NFL doesn't care about women. Look, I care about women. I am married to one for 18 and a half years. I've procreated with that same woman. I have 2 daughters of my own. I have a mom. I have a mother-in-law. Like, I'm not in any way anti-woman, but I also know that while the sentence should be severe, it is not, nor should it be, a death sentence to one's career. It shouldn't. So, look, I'm not sitting here telling you that I'm doing backflips. I don't care that Kareem Hunt is in the NFL and not in the NFL. I just understand the reasonable nature to it. And I don't know if I was sitting there talking to my wife last night, and I said, man, we're in such a weird place. She's become an avid follower of politics. And when you have somebody on any of these political shows to support one side or the other, and that's the only guest that'll appear there, there's no reasonable nature in how they answer questions. They will only answer questions from their side's perspective, right? From their side's perspective. If you're pro-Trump, then anybody else who's out there, when you're asked a question about a reasonable question that would say the president who you support has done something wrong, you instead of even answering the question, you simply attack the other side. And the same is true for the anti-Trump people. There is no reasonable gray area where the rest of the world actually seems to or used to live. Right? That's the truth to it. The world is gray, and political news tries to make it out to be in black and white. And what's happened with sports is it's become a lot like political news, where you're in the league until you're out of the league, and once you're out of the league, you're out. And there's a gray area there. And the gray area is with Kareem Hunt. It's like, look, he was humiliated. He lost his job. He lost a chance to go to the Super Bowl. All of this rightfully so. That is punishment. He lost a lot of money. He lost credibility as well. And so he'll wear the scarlet letter of being an abuser of women for the rest of the foreseeable future. But just like Tyreek Hill, who lost his scholarship to Oklahoma State and fell in the draft in spite of the fact that he might be the fastest player to ever play in the National Football League, there is and should be, for the right person who's reasonable in their acceptance of their failures, a second chance. So again, I'm not sitting here telling you Gottlieb pro women abusers. Like, no. I mean, there is no real, of course, anti, but I also don't believe in a career death penalty for a first-time offense if you dig in and you find out that that person accepts responsibility, grows from it, and there has to be some sort of punishment. I got no problem with losing your job. But I do think this is one that you can come back from, and let's see if you can become somebody who's a productive member of not just society, but the National Football League. I think that's a reasonable thought to have. The other part to it is, if you completely crush somebody's career and their ability to make money, and this is something I don't know how much it'll be discussed. It stands to reason, though, that you're going to stop some women from coming out. There's already the victim shaming in America, and we do this. They do this in other countries, where if somebody comes out with negative information about a professional athlete or negative information about anybody, instead of deciphering the information and giving a legitimate alibi or an explanation, instead we go after the victim, which is wrong. But if Kareem Hunt never plays football again, and in this case it's not the case, but if it's somebody who's your significant other and you depend upon them for spousal support because you have a kid, like, I'd be cautious if I'm a woman about coming out and outing somebody as an abuser. Why? Because they'll never be able to make money ever again. So I don't think this is an unreasonable timeline or unreasonable way for Kareem Hunt to get back in the National Football League. But I wonder if we as Americans, we as sports fans, are reasonable in our acceptance of people go to counseling, people get a second chance, and we'll see what he does with that second chance.